Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all thing Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, coming to you from, well, maybe the most dangerous place on earth, Brooklyn, New York, according to this movie anyway. And, I'm also the podcast host who never looks a horse's gift in the mouth, in case you were curious. But I am not the only person who is corralling this cactus. I can't even remember the name of the town. This little quiet cactus town. Who's here with me today?
Whippersnapper, Hornswoggle, Steve Guntley. This is the podcast that is all about alien cowboys, Shigglepoop, and Mafia twins. That's because this is the podcast about Pet Shop, another surprisingly big hit from the family-friendly Moonbeam sub-label, which we have not checked in with in a little bit, but I'm glad we're jumping back in with this one because this probably explains why so many people of our generation are weirdos that grew up to be strange people because they were probably watching video store movies like Pet Shop, which is inherently insane. And I'm excited to get into it. And luckily, we have a whole menagerie here to help us talk about this movie. So who's here with us today?
Oh, yes, it's perfect. A menagerie of weirdos, if you will. Our fans and Steve and myself love all things 80s horror. And this may not be an 80s horror movie in the traditional sense, but, in order to talk about this one fully, we decided to bring the hosts of the amazing Neon Brainiacs podcast on to join us today. And there are a few of them. So, guys, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves to our listeners?
Jimmy Hoffa joke enthusiast, Greg Harrington.
Hi, I am Ben Deedles, and I don't have a fun quip like you guys from the movie. So.
That's because you got no notes.
My name is Lance Parkin, and I've seen this film.
It sounds like a confession. Yeah. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I've seen Pet Shop, 1994, and
yeah, thanks for having us, guys.
Yeah, of course, guys.
Thrilled to have you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
for being
absolutely.
Here.
And we were on your show to talk about the 1987 David Dakota classic Creepazoids, which since that episode was recorded and aired, I actually found the colored vinyl original soundtrack of Creepazoids, which I bought, which is an amazing purchase. The gatefold sleeve of it is so awesome.
Oh yeah,
the score is actually really good. I don't think we talked a whole lot about it in the episode because it's kind of minimal synth and sort of what you would expect, but it's surprisingly solid. And when I saw it in the record store, I immediately was like, I have to have that. But yeah, we were on your show for that. It was so much fun. And we like to wax nostalgic about our growing up in the 80s and walking down the aisles of the video store and all that. And so we'd be hard pressed to take, the anecdotes and experience away from you guys, since your show is all about 80s horror specifically. So tell our listeners a little bit about your own horror preferences, how you came together to form the show, what the show is all about.
Take it away, Greg.
Yeah, I figured that was on me at first. So as the person that kind of probably goes to bat the most for 80s horror, as Ben likes for me to tell the story, the entire format of the show was my idea. I mean, we're all in our mid to late to 30s to early 40s. And definitely grew up, very loyal to the video store, renting pretty much anything and everything, from all 8 Friday the 13th movies. And boy, I wish they could have made more, to, Cartoon All-Stars to the rescue.
Yeah.
They really did stop us from using drugs. Thank you, Slimer.
I have Alf to credit for that.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we all have our own angels, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you moved off of weed and you started eating cats, so it wasn't perfect. Transition,
they don't ask how, they just ask how well you're doing.
Yeah.
It's funny you bring those two things up because I definitely would have been renting Friday the 13th and then also some kind of kids thing at the same time. Like that was sort of my parents' deal. It was like you can rent one movie that's geared towards adults and then you can rent one kid thing. And I think I mentioned this in one of our very early episodes, but it's like I would get like Jason Lives and then I would go and get like a terrible like VHS compilation of like the Filmation or Hanna-Barbera Archie's cartoon.
Nice.
I don't really know why that, or maybe a real Ghostbusters VHS
There we go.
from
Nice.
time to time. And so, what kind of stuff have you covered so far on your show?
Oh, pretty much anything and everything. Since getting Lance into the fold here, he's kind of expanded our minds, not only with audience participation, but also with, having dedicated months to go outside of our formats. So we'll do 70s month, 90s month. We've done action blocks and stuff like that. I think later this year, we're going to do like a comedy, like a horror comedy block leading into our 7-year anniversary. But as of the time of this recording, the episode we have coming out this Wednesday will be number 350. So there's been a lot that we've covered.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, a lot.
amazing.
350. That's impressive. That's a great number of horror movies, and hopefully, some of them are your classics and have been sort of well-worn territory in terms of conversations. But a lot of them, and I know from the ones I've listened to in the episode list, are pretty obscure. So hopefully, some people sat down with a little notebook and paper and found some pretty cool recs because of what you guys are doing. But interestingly, today we're not talking about a horror movie. We're taking a hard right back into Moonbeam territory, which we haven't been in about 9 months, I'm going to say. So, Steve, why don't you fire off a couple of stats about the movie we're going to get into today?
Absolutely. Pet Shop was released on December 23rd, 1994. It was directed by Hope Perello and written by Brent Friedman, Mark Goldstein, and Greg Sudeth. And it stars Leanne Orsi, Spencer Vrooman, Joanne Barron, David Wagner, Jane Morris, Jeff Michalski, Cody Berger, Alfred Dennis, and Terry Kaiser. So yes, we are back in Moonbeam Zone this week. We took a brief detour back to kids' entertainment when we covered the Film Monsters movies, but those really don't scratch the same itch that the Moonbeam films do, which are like they're very bright, very colorful, very, very slapsticky, and not trying to be like a dark horror for kids. Although, you could make some arguments that there are some horrific elements in all of these movies. So as we covered in our previous Moonbeam episode on Prehysteria, this sublabel is probably the most successful venture that Charles Band has ever been involved in, even though it's only a couple years, because these things were hugely successful on video. So like Remote and the 3 Prehysteria movies and Dragon World and all the different Leprechaun films. And then Pet Shop was definitely in that mix. I definitely have a memory of seeing this trailer because I think when I was being babysat as a very young kid, the people watching me put on Dragon World or one of those movies, and I kind of watched it out of the side of my eye while playing Game Boy. And so there were bits of this that were ringing a bell when I watched it. Now, Pet Shop was envisioned as kind of a quirky, sort of Tim Burton-esque family fable, which is kind of why the town in this movie, Cactus Flats, looks very like prefab and very sort of fakey in the same way that like Edward Scissorhands did. That was kind of the vibe they were going for. Now, apparently, in the original draft, there was going to be some kind of revelation that every single person in this town is in witness protection. It's not just this one family, which I'm going to say bad strategy on the terms of the FBI, but also kind of a fun idea for like a wacky, because that's like a one-stop shop if you're a hired killer for the mafia. It's just like, oh, we just need to go to this one town in Arizona. There's a million stoolies everywhere. But yeah, so they kind of went away with that, but there are still kind of elements of it. It's why everybody in the town is sort of acting suspicious and weird. And that's kind of the idea that they're going for. So I do want to shout out that this is now the second female director that we have encountered on the show. A fact that remains very depressing, but hey, at least it wasn't just the one. This is directed by Hope Perello, who is only 3 movies in her career. She debuted in 1991 with Howling Part 6: The Freaks. Now, I've dropped off of the Howling movies after like 1. And then I skipped straight ahead to 7.
It's a good choice. That's a good choice.
Yeah. So I hear. So I watched 1 and then I skipped all the way ahead to 7 because I heard 7 was like a wildly batshit bad movie. And it absolutely is. If you get a chance to see Howling 7, it is utterly bizarre. It looks like it was filmed on an old like VHS camera in the early 2000s. And it's insane. So I've not seen Howling Part 6, The Freaks, but my understanding of that series is that it has a reputation for being particularly insane with its sequels, right? Like each one is wildly different and they're all kind of gross and chintzy and weird in their own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Borderline
Some very
unwatchable.
boring. Yeah.
Borderline unwatchable. Yeah. I here's my hot take. I was not a crazy big fan of the first one. You know, I'm a hard sell when it comes to werewolf movies, and maybe I need to revisit the original Howling because a lot of people really love that. But yeah, that one never really clicked for me. But
Well,
I digress.
you saw Werewolf Reborn, so you never have to see another one.
Oh, that's
You
true.
saw
He's been reborn. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the Howling sequels, they are something. Like
They are something.
Yeah, you guys know.
Yeah, we know.
they
Watched
are
them all.
films that
Yeah.
exist, and you've covered them all.
Just the 80s ones.
The 80s ones.
Okay,
We did a Halloween theme month a couple years ago called Halloween, and
Good
we
call.
covered 2 through 4 or
2, 3,
5.
4, and 5.
Yeah.
okay, all right. So
Yeah.
you all just missed the debut feature film of Hope Perillo, but
Rats.
she followed it up with this movie. Then she directed a film called St. Patrick's Day in 1997, and then she bounced from the industry entirely. I really don't know what became of her. I believe she was kind of a long-time collaborator with Charles Band, working as like a producer and a PA on a lot of early movies, and then kind of got the chance to direct this. But yeah, so that makes this and Assault of the Killer Bimbos as so far the 2 female-directed films that we have covered on this show. Hopefully that trend is going to change as we have more full moon movies coming out all the time. Now, if you're listening to that cast, there's probably one name out of there that jumps out at you, and that is the name of Terry Kaiser. If that rings a bell, it's because he's probably the most famous dead body in history. He's a character actor with hundreds of credits going back to the 60s, and he's had roles in some big movies and TV shows. We all know him from Friday the 13th, Part 7, from WKRP in Cincinnati, The Fresh Prince, lots of different things like that. But to most people, he will always be Bernie Lomax, the titular character in the Weekend at Bernie's movies. All right, so I don't know where y'all come down on Weekend at Bernie's. I personally find those movies to be maybe the stupidest things ever put on film. But Terry Kaiser's physical performance in those movies are exceptional. Like that is a thankless task to be said. Okay, you're going to be this main character of this movie. You have very few lines, and you're going to be a corpse the entire movie with like these 2 goons like flopping you around everywhere. And you need to be convincingly dead the entire movie. And I think he excels at that. Like honestly, I think that's a very funny performance from him in those movies. I don't know where y'all come down on it.
You're half right. They are definitely some of the dumbest movies ever made. 2 wildly more so than 1.
2 is
but
unbelievable.
They are
Mhm.
so enjoyable to me.
Okay, that's fair.
I love them both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look.
They were big for me as a kid growing up
Mhm.
because my parents rented the first one and they thought it was funny, and so did I. And yeah, I don't remember my dad loving the second one so much, but I sure did. So
I think I made the fatal mistake of not seeing that first movie until I was in my 30s. So
yeah,
like,
well,
that's
that'd do it.
probably it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it for a lot of them.
Yeah.
It hits a lot different when you're 8.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I can
What
imagine.
doesn't?
So
Yeah.
Yeah, my story's kind of the same. I feel like and it's funny because my parents, my mom was a movie lover. My dad, I would go so far as to call a cinephile in a lot of ways. I don't know what it was about Weekend at Bernie's, but they laughed their asses off, my parents. And
Yes.
it was just one of those ones where it just hit for some reason. And I think it has a lot to do with Terry Kaiser's performance, because just right now I'm just picturing him with the sunglasses on being kind of moved around, and it's funny. Like it's a really good comedic performance. And I think like it's Andrew McCarthy and Jonathan Silverman. Yeah. And I'm like, and I feel like they're amiable enough. I mean, the second one, you get into like the Mobu and all of that stuff. Like that's
like the zombie
probably
one, right?
That's probably like an area where they didn't need to go. Like not exactly something that they were equipped to handle with any kind of sensitivity in 1990 or whenever Weekend at Bernie's 2 was being made. But
94, I believe. Three.
Is it that late?
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, 93, 94, around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took
Okay.
a while. But yeah, we needed 7 years between Bernie's movies to really whet people's appetites.
One interesting thing about Terry Kaiser is that recently, last year, he starred in The Mutilator 2.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
which,
wow.
Yeah, which I saw. I don't know if that's been released yet. I've seen poster art and stuff for it and some people who are into it. And I'm like, and the Mutilator, the original one, super fun movie. So I'm kind of excited to watch this one. But he was also a couple of years ago in a Friday the 13th fan film called Roseblood, and he plays Dr. Cruz again.
Yeah.
But the thing about this is that this fan film, besides the fact that it has surprisingly good reviews, it's basically like a sequel directly to The New Blood, and it's got Lar Park Lincoln and Kevin Spiritus in it also again. And I'm just like, I did not know this thing existed until I was, going down the Terry Crews IMDb rabbit hole a little bit for this. I would like to track that down and see it. Like New Blood, not my favorite Friday, but I've
said this on mic before. Not my favorite Friday, but definitely my favorite Jason. That's my favorite Jason design of the whole series is part 7. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny enough, we're actually covering that on the show this week.
Oh, nice.
I unabashedly love part 7. Yeah. It's, they try to do something different with that one, and I commend them for it. I wish I would have seen a little bit more of that. In that series. But yeah.
Well, we had Kevin Spiritus on the show for our like subspecies interview show, and he was great. And so like I feel like I have more good grace towards the movie now because he's in it, and then also Elizabeth Caton.
That's right.
An actress who's popped up in a bunch of stuff that we've done recently. Plays Robin, I believe, in that movie, and she's so much fun in the movies that we've seen her in. And I always liked her as one of the victims in that movie, like her energy that she brought. And so there's stuff about part 7 that I really like. I mean, it obviously has a sleeping bag kill.
Oh yeah.
It has some pretty fun stuff. It's just, I feel like it drags occasionally, but
it does. But either way, Terry Kaiser, great in that movie, a lot of fun in this movie, and he's still with us at 86, and I am dreading his obituaries when they come out. I feel like people are going to be scrambling over themselves to make some tasteless jokes about his death, and I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, they absolutely will.
But so let's talk about Pet Shop, because holy shit, what a weird movie. I was not expecting all the different weird twists and turns that this movie had. But first, I think I have to ask Jared, a native New Yorker, you're a Brooklynite.
Yep.
Why doesn't your accent sound as real as these ones?
What I was about to ask.
Listen, it's taken me a long time to curb that thing, man. If you would, if I would have been hosting this show as a kid, it would have been way more prevalent. It's taken me a long time to get rid of it.
I had a real moment early on in this movie. I'm just like, oh, they're doing silly voices. Oh no, these are their voices for the movie. They're gonna do this the whole film. Oh, okay, all right.
Here's the secret.
Need to adjust.
Here's the secret, Jared. If you ever want to bring that back, just get a nondescript bootleg Mets hat, and it should do the trick.
Yeah.
Well, it's that was making me laugh because those hats with the NYs on them that aren't interlocking, those are the ones that you go there. There's like little like souvenir shops in like Times Square or near Grand Central or places where a lot of tourists are, where it's just like, here's a really nondescript New York piece of clothing, but it's not, it's not the Yankees or the Mets because it doesn't have the NYs interlocking. They're just two separate letters next to each other.
Yeah, if you quickly need to disguise your identity from so police or a mafia hitman, that's where you go. They got a booth for that.
I do want to point out, like a point of contention, though. We haven't had this happen yet, but so we use Dave J's book. It came from the video aisle as a reference for a lot of this stuff. Like probably maybe our biggest reference that we pull from for some historical background and behind the scenes type stuff. Yeah, he claims in the book that this family is from New Jersey. That is not true.
No, they say Brooklyn. They
say Brooklyn many times.
Yeah,
they might be conflating it because the text I sent to you while we were watching this movie was just like, either they're trying to do a bad Pauly Walnuts or Tony Sirico like really loved this movie and just kind of made it his whole personality because I'm not an expert in the different regional dialects, but this did sound a little more Jersey to me. I don't know, because it just did not seem like a real New Yorker would talk like this.
Well, Steve, I don't enjoy your implication that there was not a dialect coach on set.
I mean, my
Yes, but
biggest
he was also
gripe-
the dramaturge, so he was
Yeah.
very busy. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Ben.
My biggest gripe was just like I knew they weren't from New York because they did not order a big New Yorker from Pizza Hut.
Yeah,
without the
that's
narration
how you know.
at all. And so
No,
it's like,
no Strokes albums in that car.
yeah, there was
It's
a
true.
single Strokes album. No, big New Yorker pizza. I mean, those are New York things.
Yeah, yeah. At least they got it right that all New Yorkers are constantly going, hey,
Hey,
it's
New York."
over here. Like it's such a cartoon. Like I know this is like a movie for small kids, but it's so cartoonish and it's execution of that.
Full disclosure, that was how I was going to bring in the show.
Oh no!
Was,
Okay.
Doing an accent like that, and I pulled a game time decision at the very end not to do it out of sensitivity because this movie is very insensitive to my people. It also well, the funny thing is that it hit really close to home from time to time because you don't hear an accent on me, but you get my extended family together, and it sounds a lot like this movie.
Okay.
And, Yeah, and so it was hitting a little close to home for me, but I thought about it and I said, like, what is it about Charles and Albert Band? Now, we know that they are Italian. We know that Charles Band grew up partially in Italy speaking Italian. But what is it about, like, lunk-headed grease balls that these two guys love? Because they throw them into these Moonbeam movies in spades.
Yeah. And here we get kind of like the babysitter twins, like we get some real
Yeah.
ridiculous, like big beefy guys chasing them down.
Was this just like a big thing in the 90s? I feel like just Goodfellas and like that kind of stuff like was so popular that I feel like you saw a lot of these like kind of like mob people showing up in kids movies. Like I think like Man of the House with Jonathan Taylor Thomas and even House Guest with Sinbad. There was like a lot of that.
Guest, yeah.
There was like a lot of that kind of like vibe going on in the early 90s, even in children's films, which is kind of strange.
Yeah.
I have a theory, and my theory is that everyone in the world saw either Goodfellas or they saw how good Van Damme's hair looked slicked back in Double Impact. And they said, you know what? If you're a heavy, you need like a see-through synthetic shirt and a blazer with big shoulder pads.
Yeah.
And just slick your hair back into like a little ponytail if you're able, because I feel like every bad guy, and this is the dumbest thing ever, but the one that popped into my head as I'm making that description is one of the heavies in Police Academy 5 Assignment Miami Beach.
Oh yeah,
The best
like the
one.
main guy.
I'm gonna take your word on that one. Yeah. I have not done my due diligence on that series.
Now, Steve, take a seat. Let me and the Neon Brainiacs gentlemen, the real cinephiles and cultured people in the room, talk a little bit about Police Academy 5 Assignment Miami Beach.
Like I'm not even just being ironic. I know I like fucking love that movie.
He loves that movie. Yeah, that's not it.
All right.
It's
See,
one of the
I
best
was
Police
always-
Academies. Yeah.
Is it because I feel like I watched it a lot. I know that the sixth one, which was City Under Siege, is the one that's got the guy who played Lloyd Braun.
Well, so does
And-
5.
Oh, is he in 5 also?
Yeah, he takes.
Matt McCoy?
Yeah, Matt
Yeah,
McCoy.
Matt
He
McCoy.
takes Steve Gutenberg's place.
That's
Basically,
right.
he's
Yeah,
like the Shemp Mahoney in that.
Different character
Oh,
though.
okay.
Different character.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's the Mahoney character basically.
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. Can anybody really take Steve Gutenberg's place though?
No.
Oh no.
Yeah, just look at Cocoon too.
Proofs in the
Well,
pudding.
yeah, in that
Short
movie,
Circuit too.
Short Circuit 2, yeah. But yeah, I feel like I was always put off a little bit by the lack of Gutenberg in Police Academy 5, 6, and 7. But they, Matt McCoy also, I always think of him as the really bland husband from The Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think of.
I think it was
Excellent
a
film.
one-shot character in LA Confidential, but that's I don't know why. That's the moment that always comes into mind. But yeah, no, I Police Academy, another one. I stopped at part 1. I tapped out there. I'm like, oh, okay, and this is the best
Right.
one. Okay, I'm good.
You never even got to see their first assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with him. I only ever saw the first one.
I mean, to be fair, like Police Academy is the Howling of slapstick comedy.
Okay, I think that seems really fair. Based on my very limited knowledge, it does
if I had a nickel
fair.
for every time I heard that.
I mean, Bobcat doesn't even show up till part 2. So
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I think I remember
doesn't?
seeing.
No.
Maybe I've seen 2 then.
Yeah.
I remember seeing
Bobcat's
the
in second one.
I don't know which one it is about an addictive Game Boy game. I think I saw a few minutes of that on Comedy Central once, and they had an up close shot of somebody playing a Game Boy that very clearly did not have a cartridge in it, and I'm like, nope, can't do it. No, they messed up this core thing up. They messed it up.
I mean, part 4 was the important one for me because you get skateboarding David Spade in that movie.
That's
Oh,
true.
there you go. Okay,
yeah.
worth it.
Yeah, Tony Hawk, I believe, was his stunt double or somebody's stunt double in that. Yeah,
That's so weird to think that Tony Hawk stunt doubled for David Spade of all people. Like, you tell me he did that for Christian Slater and Gleaming the Cube, I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. You tell me David Spade,
yeah.
yeah, no, he's got a full
Yeah,
foot on him.
I don't want this to go completely off the rails into a Police Academy conversation.
Too late.
But
Too late. Yeah, you should
True.
not have invited us.
I knew that was the risk we were running. But I will say, I heard somebody say that part 1 is supposed to be the best one. And that was, created by Hugh Wilson of WKRP and Cincinnati fame at that point. But I think I actually would go so far as to say, like, I actually can appreciate that they changed the sequels in Police Academy to fun, goofy PG-13 movies instead of the like sex crimes of the first movie.
Yes,
Right,
they-
yeah.
Like the first one's a hard R with a lot of non-consensual sex in it, and it's kind of like it doesn't sit well. But it's like those sequels, like they're not good, but they're silly, but they're more or less harmless.
Yeah,
Still,
yeah.
still a lot of jokes about Leslie Easterbrook's breasts, but
Oh, sure.
you know,
Well, you know. All right, so I'm curious. Was Pet Shop a video store movie for you guys growing up? Because I was curious why you selected this one in particular to talk about.
ask Greg.
Are you familiar with the phrase grasping at straws?
I am, yes. I learned it while watching this movie.
Yeah. Yes. This was kind of an audible called the movie we had lined up seemed a little too gross. So I was like, let's just go in the complete opposite direction. I've scrolled past this a million times on Tubi. What the hell?
Okay, so this is a fresh discovery for all of us then.
Yes.
All right. So,
Yeah.
okay, because I know
Fresh for me.
we've definitely heard from listeners who were like, we covered Prehysteria, and there's just like, oh man, this just triggered so much stuff. Like I used to watch this movie all the time when I was a kid, or I used to see this all over so I wasn't clear if this was going to be one of those for y'all or not, but it sounds like we were all discovering this little gem.
Well,
at the
I don't
same
know.
time.
Lance is being very quiet, so I think he's in his bedroom taking down his poster of Pet Shop. He's got up on the wall.
Well, it's interesting that I didn't know that this Moonbeam or ever made Prehysteria.
Yeah.
And when I watched this movie, I kept thinking about Prehysteria. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Like it definitely feels like same studio.
Yeah, they have their house style, for
Yeah.
sure. Like, and it's somehow like it feels like a Full Moon production, but it's still very distinctive in its own like kind of candy colored nonsense.
Less bowl cuts in this one.
Fewer, slightly, yeah. Which I
Well,
miss them, to be honest, and I miss the kid who's obsessed with Elvis. Instead, we just get like the kid who's obsessed with like rap music and taking long baths.
Yeah, tomato.
Yeah, same thing.
And tell me if anybody else felt this too, but like, I made a joke when we did our episode on Terror Vision, which is a movie that I love very
Brilliant.
much.
Brilliant.
But I talked a little bit about the set design of Terror Vision. And I said that it looked like, like a Wall of Voodoo album cover, which might be
Yeah.
dating myself to some people.
No, that's
But-
accurate.
Yeah, you nailed it.
But this one, did you not get the sense that these were some reused sets from Hey Vern, It's Ernest?
Oh, I
it
believe it.
looked- The sets looked very we stumbled upon this like the set of Hey Dude after it was abandoned by Nickelodeon, and
Let's use
Charles
it.
Band
Yeah.
bought it for like $8 in a candy bar.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually did get one. I don't think it was an intentional sight gag, but I got one big laugh out of this movie because they make a big point to show all these different signs in the mini mall, and it's like sewing store and like food store and things like that. It's all just like blank something store. And then the very last one in that row is Sign Store. And I just thought that was very funny because it's like,
That's good.
they've got this really, really lazy sign design. And there's this guy down at the end who's just like, yep, this is my style, man. Everybody's getting on board with it. I'm a visionary.
No, that's intentional. That's funny. That's a good gag.
It was actually funny. Yeah. But so the basic overall plot of this movie is that aliens come down to Earth. They take over a pet shop in a small town in Arizona and populate it with these weird little creatures that can transform into regular animals. They get involved with some of the local kids here. And then just because it's the early 90s, one of those kids is being pursued by the mafia. And so there's all kinds of wackiness ensuing there.
The tale is old as time, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. One of those classic, like Joseph Campbell stories, you know? Yeah, it's done to death.
Mm.
But we have to talk about these cowboys because
Please.
this was really melting my brain when we've heard the aliens have taken the form of these very gaudy, like stiff talking, weird cowboys who finish each other's sentences. It's Mr. and Mrs. Zinn. And again, something I texted to Jared this morning is just like, this guy, Mr. Zinn, looks exactly like Tim Robinson, and this feels like a Tim Robinson bit, like this entire thing. And he was like, and you, Jared, you were like, yeah, I was writing the same exact thing just now. Like it's really uncanny to the point where like my girlfriend came out, like I was watching it this morning. She slept in a little bit, and then she came out and saw what I was watching, and she's like, "Is this? I think you should leave." Like she just really thought it was him. It's an actor. What did I say his name was? Mikowski, Tim Mikowski, or Jeff Mikowski. Sorry, Jeff Mikowski. And it is just kind of dead on how similar he looks to Tim Robinson and like the mannerisms and the vocal performance.
The costume design for them, it reminded me of like if the band members of Primus in the Winona's Big Brown Beaver commercial, music video came to life and stopped being made of plastic.
Yeah, that's
totally right. That's exactly
it.
what it looks like. Because that's even more accurate. I was thinking he looks sort of like the Hopalong Cassidy costume in Fade to Black.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, yeah.
It is very like old school, like fringe and rhinestone movie cowboy kind of looks, you know. And we find out eventually that the 10-gallon hats are hiding something gross underneath them. So
It's hiding the fact that they come from France.
exactly,
pretty
They come
much.
from France.
Yeah.
They were working with Kent Brockman to take down the Quickie Mart.
Just between me and you, smash cat.
Yeah.
I admit that sometimes when I'm watching these movies, my brain wanders a little bit. I was unclear about what their goal was.
So was I. Yeah.
What are they doing here on Earth? Why are they like taking over this pet store? Like what do they want? Are they bad guys? They kind of have a bad guy energy, but also like they're too silly to be a real bad guy. I was a little confused about what these aliens wanted.
Well, at one point, do they make the comment that there's like some sort of law where they have to leave X amount of pets to take X amount of pets?
Well, there's that, but then there's also they're trying to find a child to take back to their planet to sell to other aliens.
Yeah, like a pet. Yeah, like I think they're trying to take the kids as pets. And
why
she's
is
like
this
the
for
prize
children?
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I had so many questions about that. And I mean, this is a diversion from that, but why didn't they let the little girl take her dog when they went into witness protection? Like,
right?
They're moving somewhere with a yard. Like, if anything, he's going to be happier. Like, why do they not let her take the dog? And also, what happened to the dog?
That dog's got loose lips, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He's still talking to the mom.
Yeah.
I saw the whole thing.
Woof.
Woof.
Where's my dog, Dad? Oh, he sleeps with the fishes. Don't worry about it. Yeah. I mean,
they went where?
Woof.
I ain't going to no Cactus Flats, arf arf.
We're talking about it's kind of about the Simpsons, and now we're talking about talking dogs. And now in my head right now is just going, find your soulmate, Homer.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean it's so I guess the main event here is the weird little alien pets.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say I think these puppets are cute. I think these designs of these characters are kind of endearing in their own little goofy way. But I think Dave J makes a really good point in his book. It's like it doesn't really matter how cute your puppet design is if you are making them transform into real life animals that are way cuter, you know? So like Grizzle or whatever his name is turns into an actual adorable little puppy, you know, and the one little freaky Furby looking thing turns into an actual cute little baby bunny. So you might be undermining your point a little bit with this.
Yeah, I did like the puppets. I thought they were cool. And they try to do like some interesting stuff with them, but yeah, you're right. Like when juxtaposed with like the actual animals, it's like I don't know, it's hard to
compare.
Hard to compete with a
It is,
actual
yeah.
dog. Yeah,
Which you often do.
which I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, in my real life. Yeah,
Yeah.
We weren't gonna bring that up.
Yeah, and these things are all puppets, and I think that's one of the sort of things that hinders the movie too, is we don't get any cool Dave Allen stop motion in this movie, and I think that's a budgetary thing. And I watched the Video Zone, and they talk about how, you know, it was tough sometimes because they needed mechanisms for each of the different appendages and things for the puppets to work, and all of the different puppeteers who were controlling them different ways and stuff. And like, that's cool, and like the puppets looked cute, like you said, but
Yeah.
I think I could have used some. I think that's where Prehysterio gains a couple points on this one, is for having some stop motion in it, because we could have used that here. I think it would have worked well in the scene when they're kind of like pigging out and eating all their food. They're really limited mobility wise with what they're able to do with the plates of food in front of them.
I do think that what this movie lacks in claymation, it makes up for in Ghoulies 2 type voices for the animals.
Yeah. We're just getting our like voice acting reel down now. Yeah, we're just doing all of our little Frank Welkery sounds. Yeah. No, they you know, I found them endearing enough. Like they were mischievous and playful in kind of the right ways. But there's this weird stretch in the middle of the movie where they're all just getting really sleepy. And so the kids need to go have this wacky Benny Hill montage where they're throwing chips everywhere. And then so it's just like, did it not occur to you to feed your pets? Because that seemed to solve the problem. Like they were all sleepy and tired and sick, and because you haven't been feeding your pets. Like, you kids are terrible at being pet owners.
Yeah, they're not good owners. They don't feed the pets, and then when they do feed the pets, they just give them an ungodly amount of food. I got a little laugh out of the scene when it cut to all of them just over full, and they're like popping Rolaids.
Yeah.
Seltzer. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Yeah,
It was goofy as hell. I mean, you know, so like the family is very like overblown and wacky as well. Like, you know, it's one of the few like non-heel turns that Terry Kaiser has, but he's still like bringing a lot of goofy energy to this. And Joanne Barron, who plays the mother, is also just going full Fran Drescher. Just being really loud and obnoxious, and like painting the New York skyline on their garage door just in case, like, you know, the mafia is driving by. It's like, oh, I'm looking for some people who left New York. Where can I find them?
Hey, it's probably that one over there.
I mean, it's very silly and very over the top. And then you have this brother character who's kind of like, he's like a horny, like musclehead teenager who's also like going to MIT.
Yeah, he was like every like brother character like mixed into one. I feel like in this, like he was a jock, but he was also like could make gadgets and was like very smart.
He was a
like,
jerk, but he was also very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is this guy?
And then we kind of abandon him in the middle of the movie in service of like a kind of gross fat phobic joke about a teenage girl. And then he's just
quite a bit of fat phobia in this. I felt
is.
Yeah, even with the little boy as well. Like
they were picking on him.
A lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this was the direct pipeline for this young actor, but he did appear in Heavyweights the year after.
He did?
Sure did.
Yeah, make
Okay.
Heavyweights comment.
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, I always feel bad, like, because anytime I hear a joke like that in a movie, I'm just thinking, like, all right, so this little kid had to read this script where you're like calling him a butterball or whatever and just being like really mean to him. I'm like, what is that going to do to like a 10-year-old boy, you know, who's already kind of struggling with these kind of issues, you know, like.
There's a moment, even his mother, like he's taking a bath and the mother comes in and she's like, dinner's ready. She's like, not like you need it or something.
Yeah.
Like, that's his mom.
Fuck you, mom. What are you doing? Yeah, that's rude.
Lord. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
no, I always feel really bad. And yeah, they're making some really like cheap pot shots about the one girl. And then that's a creepy scene in its own because the line that the little boy has, so he was able to entice the little brother to come over.
This line sent
Oh.
shivers down my spine.
Yeah.
He was
Oh,
able
shit.
to entice
Because-
the boy to come over with a picture of his sister in a bikini.
So
And
I'll be
then-
honest with you. I missed that part.
Okay.
I must have looked down or something. So when he says this line that you're going to talk about in a second, Steve, I didn't realize there was an older sister,
Uh-huh.
and I thought he was referring to
Oh,
Alexis, the younger sister.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
like, I'm sorry, wait a second. This college age brother is being propositioned for his like to put his hands on this 12-year-old girl. When he
okay, that's
walked to
way
the back
worse.
and I realized it was somebody else entirely, I went, okay, I didn't bother rewinding, but I said I must have missed something here where they introduced the fact that there's another sister because I didn't catch it. And for things got a little hairy for a second there.
Yeah, okay, that would be disturbing. But you know what? The line itself is already disturbing because they have this little exchange where the older brother says, like, be sure to keep your hands off my sister. And the little boy looks at him with this sly, creepy pornographer's look and says, I'll keep my hands off your sister if you keep your hands on mine.
Yeah.
What the fuck, kid?
Yeah.
Okay, like what is happening here? It's just like I applaud you for being sex positive, I guess, in an early 90s movie, but that's your sister, dude. Come on, stop being gross.
Yeah, it's weird.
His sister was cute too. I didn't really understand
Yeah.
what
Yeah, it
the
was-
problem was. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
like,
no.
oh no, she wants to kiss me. Oh, it was just like, I don't know,
Again,
dude.
I feel
Yeah.
so bad for the actress because she's probably reading
Yeah.
that and just like, enter gross monster that we're gonna make fun of, and it's just like, what? That's not your reality. That is not what you look like.
Yeah.
That is not your thing.
It's also played really weird because at first I didn't even get, maybe it was from the way it was staged and the performances, but I didn't catch that she was supposed to be gross at first, like the way they come together. But then when she starts explaining, oh, that was a picture of me when I was a sophomore, now I'm a senior and I've filled out, and he's like, and then some, or something like that. I'm like, oh, that's what they're doing here. He prefers this picture of the sophomore. I didn't quite put two and two together because it's like a fully developed woman and he's staring directly into her breast. I'm just like, okay, like good for him. And then that's not where they were going with it, and it was a weird choice. They're in a film with no shortage of weird choices and swings. Like there's just so many things. The first character introduction to the younger sister Alexis, I mean, that I just looking at her and her attitude and wardrobe, like she was just came out of Mayim Bialik's closet with a bunch of things in her hand and was like, like it's such weird nods to really kind of time specific early 90s stuff. And her whole little subplot too about wanting to go to FIT was just a weird thing. Like there's this movie, for better or worse, it never really goes fully in the direction you expect. There's always a quirk or an aspect to a scene that's unexpected, and I'll give it some credit for that. I suppose it's definitely it's wacky, but I don't know that I would use outside of how the entire thing is going to wrap up. I don't know that from scene to scene, I don't know if I would use the word predictable.
It definitely it seems to go in a lot of directions, but also go nowhere at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and I'm with you on that. Like I can appreciate like when you have kind of a middling movie like this, it's like, why not just make all the choices? Like, why not just keep throwing stuff to the wall? And like, if you're not going to make it good, at least make it weird. And I think they're operating on that philosophy. And I will say I was never like bored by this movie. Like it was always introducing some bizarre new elements to keep me engaged. It's not cohesive and it's not particularly like smart or memorable, but it is definitely interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They
One,
just feel like
sorry,
they-
go ahead, Greg, or go ahead, Ben.
They took a lot of just like, I feel like stock like kid characters and just kind of put them in there. Like the girl who's in the fashion stuff just remind me like Lisa Turtle or whatever from Saved by the Bell. And then you got the chubby kid, you got the the kid who's like, I'm into computers and stuff. And, you know, it was just like, I don't know, just a lot of just stock characters.
The Burger King Kids Club.
Yeah, the BK Kids Club basically is what you got here. So,
They're all there.
yeah. And like none of them were really that interesting, to be honest. I thought the lead actress was pretty good, but the rest of them were all just like any kid that looked like he could have been in like a Sunny D commercial in the early 90s. So it was just like, all right, whatever, you know.
Yeah, those kids, they're always reaching for that purple stuff. They got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
I will say with the introduction of Dina, the lead character, I was brought back to something I hadn't really thought about in a long time. And what that was seeing her design. I mean, like we said, she's wearing sort of that really generic New York hat in the car. And, you know, just the way that they were probably directed to go bigger and broader with those accents was just wild. I can only imagine, you know, somebody, either the director or somebody being, no, say it like this, you know, and like guiding them through it. But her look with like the hat and flannel shirt and all that stuff kind of like reawoken a memory in me, which is that I can remember having such a crush on a lot of like tomboy characters in TV shows. Like I remember like Christine Lakin, who played Al on Step by Step.
Yes.
Like,
sure.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like I'm a kid of the 80s. Like I love Stacey Keenan also. I was a big, you know, my two dads, I almost said my three sons and my two dads into one show.
Yeah.
There's that show.
That's the Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I just really worked my way to the Brady Bunch there through reasoning. But I mean, I love Stacey Keenan also, but Al from Step by Step was who I thought about watching this. Anybody else in that boat too?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Icebox
I would have thought Icebox.
yeah.
Little
Yeah.
Giants.
from Little Giants.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very similar. Is that the same actress? I don't think it is. No, but it's similar vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, similar vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. It definitely reminded me of that period of time in my life because I was like, it's what's funny is like when this came out, these kids are all like 11 years old, like around. I was about the same age at this time, so it was like, yeah, it just brought me back for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know, I'm not sure if we have too much more to say about it. Like, I feel like I do have like it's one of those movies that is just throwing a dizzying amount of stuff at you. And to the point where, like, yeah, I still never fully understood what the villain's motivations were. There's this weird stuff later on where, like, they reveal they have this giant laser eye in their head, which makes Terry Kaiser go, like, kind of dumb.
Yeah, what happened with this? Like, it was like
I'm really curious.
A laser would come out, and then it was almost kind of like the Vigo power in like Ghostbusters 2, where like
right.
it froze like for a minute. What? Why? What was this? And where did they go? I feel like I looked down for a moment and they were gone.
It's just the movie was
over.
Like,
what?
It's a quintessential one of those movies. Yeah, if you look down, it's gonna be a completely different movie when you look back up. But yeah, he's got like some slime coming out of his mouth, and then he's just using his head to bash everything open all of a sudden. Like there's a real horror movie moment where he just like puts his whole head through a glass window.
You know what? I laughed at that moment. I did not see it coming. It got me. And yeah, he starts acting real dumb and wants to use his head as a weapon to break down doors and windows and stuff. And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but there's a moment there that got me thinking. And I have to say that I think, you know, given all the kind of like New York stereotypes that we see from people in here, one thing I appreciate about the way that the two parents are being played in this movie. I mean, Terry Kaiser is, you know, he's a reputable actor to, you know, to some extent. I mean, we talked about stuff we've seen him in. Joanne Baron is not really someone I know, but I do feel like they kind of match each other's energy.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that they're sort of goofy and playful and also kind of like horny for each other, that they're not like bitching at each other the whole time. Because I feel like that could have been a way they could have played that, where it could have just been really a contemptuous relationship between husband and wife, but it's not like that. It's, you know, he does things that annoy her. You know, he wants to watch Jane Fonda like we all did in 1993 on the
Yeah.
TV. And she, she gives it to him a little bit and he gives it back, but it's in a playful way. Even then at the end, it's sort of implied that they're going to go have sex after this whole,
for
horrible
kids.
ordeal happens.
Yeah.
Kids movie.
Happy ending for children.
Yeah. I just feel like there's like one of the producers or the director is just like, can you give us like 5% Bernie? Like people are going to be expecting just like a little bit of like loose limbs, like goofy Terry Kaiser, and I think it was just giving us a little bit of that.
Yeah, they're like, well, what if we made him stupid for 5 minutes
instead of dead for 50?
Yeah. And then we can
gotta
all
do something.
Then all the villains get thrown into a crystal decanter that throws them out into outer space, and end of movie, basically, right? Like, it very strange kind of confluence of events at the end of this film. And again, it would help me if I knew if these aliens were like villainous or not before I could kind of decide who to root for here. It seems like they just kind of peace out.
Yeah, they just take off. And something else that was like kind of conveniently wrapped up too is like there was some kind of like mineral or element,
like a vitamin that said
these pets needed, and then they were just like, oh, it's just mud. So
we got plenty of that.
Yeah, there we go.
I think who we're really rooting for is not the aliens, it's not the kids, it's not the parents, it's the runtime.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Come on, runtime.
Let's go. You can do it. You can make it.
Be like Doll Man.
No, exactly. And that's why I was
Come
like,
in at 50 minutes.
Yeah, this one, I mean, it's got its typical Moonbeam sort of extended credit sequence, both, beginning credits and end credit title sequences, which are pretty long, but this isn't one of those like padding out to 75 minutes like a lot of movies we watched. I mean, like in terms of what we've watched, this is sort of like Berlin Alexander plots.
Yeah, it really is.
It's just, it goes on. I will say, Steve, you said before that you were never really bored by it. I did hit a stretch where I remember thinking like, all right, I'm going to pause this to see where we are. And we're in the last act and there's going to be probably 12 minutes left, and there was like almost 30, and I was like, okay, that's more than I expected. And it did drag a little bit. I want to just kind of go back a second to talk about our organized crime syndicate in this movie, because I think it would be hard pressed to have a conversation there. Charles and Albert Band love an organized crime presence in their kids' movies.
They do.
Like they really put these things in here. And we've got Tony Marino, who I think at the end of the movie, we're to understand, has received a telegram.
Yeah.
Is that correct? From Uncle Dave.
Yeah.
That the job was taken care of and that the Yeager family is no more. But we get the scene with the two twins and Tony Marino in jail. And Tony Marino, first of all, just made me laugh because it's one of my childhood friends' father's name.
Oh,
and he is a very, was when he was alive, a very, crusty old Italian man, not unlike this. But he's behind bars, and this guy he was played by John LaMotta, who is the nephew of the Raging Bull himself, Jake LaMotta.
I was curious. Wow. Yeah. I saw the name. I was like, I was curious about that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's also in there for statutory rape.
Oh God! Hey. Oh boy! Oh, hope not. Oh,
really puts a whole new tint on this children's movie, doesn't it?
Well, he was probably talking to that weird creep and is selling off his sister. But yeah, weird movie, very strange. But I mean, Moonbeam movies are kind of endearing in this way because they do have that kind of gonzo full moon energy while still being ostensibly for little kids. So you kind of you got to get a little bit of both worlds. It almost makes it these good like entry points if you are the video store kid, like you said, Jared, who's like, okay, you can rent a horror movie, but you have to rent a kids movie too. This does kind of feel like a stepping stone in that direction, at least getting you used to like these goofy slapdash sort of production values and a horror movie ethos of a full moon production. Yeah,
and one of the designs of these cute little creatures obviously predates Funzo, but also predates Furby. And so I'm curious, I felt like this had to be brought up at some point. Like these predate Furbies by a couple of years.
Yeah.
So my thought then is, and I'll put this out to anyone. What are the chances that the two guys who worked together in the mid '90s to develop Furbies saw this movie first?
Not zero.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
A number that's not zero.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're saying there's a chance.
Yeah. They're strikingly similar.
Mhm.
I would say somebody saw something, but I don't know. I mean, you never know.
Hey, I didn't see nothing.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah, they-
witness protection program over here. All right. Just because I made a Furby. Oh boy.
Yeah, people don't realize that Tony Sirico used to hang out with the inventor of Furby, and they would watch these movies together. So they're very influential.
Tone, these things just fucking talk in the middle of the night. It's creepy.
Yeah, I was thinking, because I was trying to think back to like, because in the video zone they show the puppet and they show under the kind of outer layer of the puppet the mechanical parts with the eyes and stuff that move, which I think are the thing that make them really distinct in that way. And I was trying to remember, so like when I was a kid I had a Teddy Ruxpin,
Same. Yeah.
and I'm trying to remember if is that the same sort of like technology, like is it the same thing to get kind of the eyes to move and the nose to wiggle a little bit and the mouth to move, because it obviously wasn't something that was innovated and invented for this film, but it's just weird because I feel like that had to have been in other dolls and toys at that point, but to me
Yeah.
it just jumped out so much as a Furby. So now I'm trying to think, was there something that I had besides a Teddy Ruxpin that would have been the same thing? Because my first thing watching it, I'm like, that looks exactly like a Furby, and I'm like, I'm knowing what we know about Full Moon and Moonbeam and Charles Band and all them. I was kind of like expecting to pull up Wikipedia on Furby and see it having been invented in 1992
Yeah.
or something like that, for them to have gotten a look at this thing. But no, it says 1998 for the Furby, which is surprising.
I was kind of hoping for some kind of under the table, hey, you gave us this idea, here you go. So Furby would have indirectly been responsible for producing at least a few Evil Bong sequels.
Yeah.
Well, there's still time, and Lord knows what the world could use are a few more Evil Bong sequels.
We could double that easily.
Well, I think that about concludes all we have to say on Pet Shop and the Police Academy movies and various other digressing topics. Thank you so much to the Neon Brainiacs for being here and for suggesting this movie. I had a lot of fun talking about this one. Where can people find your podcast and all the stuff that you're working on?
Anywhere you're finding this fine program you're listening to right now.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
We got new episodes every Wednesday. We have a Patreon, so we have some extra bonus episodes with that, Discord, merchandise, all that stuff. And yeah, every Wednesday for almost 7 years now. So maybe you'll like it.
Yeah.
I think you will.
I think you will.
I would like to thank everybody listening to this, if they haven't checked out the show so far, they will like it. And I know, on your show, when we were on for Creepazoids, you guys always give kind of a round table score out of 10. And I know you also usually do the Greg's Gore checklist, which was something that was not necessary for this episode, which is probably nice, for you to not have to compile something for it, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But this isn't next part of our show in terms of format, but why not, since you guys are here, why don't the three of you kind of give us your score of this movie out of 10, the way you would rate some of the 80s horror movies on your show?
So I ended up going with a 3 because I'm very meticulous with anything I watch. I do catalog on Letterboxd. So yeah, I went with a 3 out of 10. I mean, it's definitely goofy. There are some things that are shockingly for children in the mid 90s in this content wise. But it was silly, but it was, it had a little bit of heart to it, which was nice. Always cool to see Terry Kaiser and the kid from Heavyweights. But yeah, I mean, it was fun, but it was not good and a little goofy. So yeah, I went with a 3.
Respectable.
Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat. I mean, I'd probably give this like a 4. It was perfectly fine and harmless. A couple little things that we talked about here on the show that was kind of weird, but it did bring me back to that period of time. It made me feel nostalgic for early 90s at the video store, kind of kids movie vibes. This is something that would have seen on TV. I was actually really surprised to hear that this was successful, because I was when I was watching this, I was like, was there a big market for these like kids movies at the video store? And I guess
so.
Maybe Charles Band cleaned up on this. Like Prehysteria is something I had definitely heard of and seen when I was a kid. I don't think I've really seen the sequels or anything, but I was surprised to hear that this was lucrative for him. So that was interesting to me, because it was something I was thinking about the whole time while watching it. I was like, was there a really big market for this? But I guess there was. So
kids did not get picky about the distribution method of movies. They don't care if a movie got released in theaters or not. They just care if it delivers the goods and gives you like wacky little creatures. And this one does. It looks like how they look on the cover of the box, and that's all you need.
Oh, cool. This is the same guy that did Sorority Babes and Slideball Dinorama. Mom, can I get this?
You're being facetious, but you just did an impression of me at age 8.
Mom, can I get this over here? Come on.
So we got a 3, we got a 4. Lance, what about you?
I probably would also go with a 4, but I have to, remind myself that I am not the intended audience for this movie.
Yeah.
It's like for children in the early 90s. So if I was a child in the early 90s, as I was, and I had seen this, like my score as an adult, 4, for all the reasons we've all said. But as a child, I probably would have gave it a maybe 6. Yeah. As like, because when did this come out? 94?
94, yeah.
So I'd been 9. So as a 9-year-old, I was getting really heavy into superhero stuff. So I don't know if the pet thing would have appealed to me as much. So I probably would have won a 6.
Yeah, that's fair.
My retro score.
Yeah,
like regressing as I so often do into a child. I would, with all the ignorance therein, I would probably give it a 6. Yeah,
happens to the best of us.
Where do you fall, Steve?
I'm gonna be generous and give it a 5. Probably skewed a little bit by the fact that we've watched so many of these movies, and so a lot of my quality metrics on this show are a little skewed compared to what I would watch outside of this show. But this is really weird. It's really creative. I was never bored by it. It's often like mind-numbingly stupid, and it's often confusing. But yeah, my threshold is low, and I had a pretty fun time with this.
Yeah, I'm gonna split the difference, and I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
Okay.
And I'm just gonna say, like, there's times when it's a cute kids movie. There's times when it's a weird, wacky mob comedy. There's times when it looks like a Far Side comic. and so there's a lot of different elements to it. I was a little bit on the fence until that last shot when they zoomed down the garage door and I could just see Robert Pattinson standing in one of the windows, and it just really got me.
Gee, I wonder whatever happened to that.
Yeah.
I would give it like a 4.5 probably for all the reasons that we said. So, I don't know if we would say that I do want to mention, based on what Ben was saying about the market for this, I do think like Prehysteria, obviously huge hit, was really on the heels of just what a national conversation the release of Jurassic Park was in and around it. So it's like you threw dinosaurs in something at that time and kids were going to rent it. And now here we're about a year and a half later. I think they said that this one didn't really hit the shelves in most markets until early 95. And so we're like a year and a half later, probably. There's nothing inherently that comes to mind that they could hitch its wagon to in terms of like what would sort of trick people into renting this movie. But I do think that it being a kids movie, this was probably like an impulse rental for a lot of people. Like there was probably a lot of people who saw this on a weird little VHS shelf near the checkout counter of a grocery store. And the kid was like, "What's that?" And a parent just said, "I don't know," and just grabbed it. Like I feel like it wasn't necessarily.
You sit here and shut up. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we all kind of treat it that way too. It's a dumb dumb fun from time to time. And our show also is dumb fun from time to time. So if you like what we do on the show, then jump onto Apple Podcasts or Spotify, drop us a little 5-star rating and maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined. If you want to follow us on social media, you can follow us on Instagram at puppetmasters_Castle Freaks. You can follow me at _Giallo_Jerry or Steve at Minotaur Matador. You can email us also at puppetmasterscastlefreaks@gmail.com with any anecdotes, questions, comments, corrections, anything that you want. We're really enjoying every time people write in with something for us. And so continue to definitely do that. And there's also another show where you can find Steve if you enjoy listening to his sultry voice. So, Steve, what else would you like to plug?
Absolutely. You can find me on Cinema Arcade. That's cinema and arcade mashed together. And that's exactly what we do on that show. We watch a movie and we play the video game based on it. As of this recording, we've got a 2-part episode coming up about the Italian Job. We've got one from the 1969 movie and one from the 2004 movie. So going to be fun to compare and contrast both of those. I'm looking forward to that. And we've got like 50, 60 episodes out there already. So if you want to check out all we've got, check out Cinema Arcade, wherever you find your podcasts. And be sure to check us out next week as well, because we've got a big one coming up. Hey everybody, Steve jumping in once again. We had a chaotic couple of weeks trying to schedule some episodes. Things got done all out of order. So we had an old episode teased at the end of this one. And in fact, what we are actually going to be talking about next week is actually a double feature of kind of a failed attempt to build a Marvel Cinematic Universe out of the Full Moon Cinematic Universe. We are talking about 2 films, Mandroid and Invisible, The Chronicles of Benjamin Knight. A very interesting duo of films that we're going to dig into with a very fun special guest. So tune in next week for Mandroid and Invisible.
Thank you again to all the fellas from Neon Brainiacs, and check out their show, and we'll see you next time.